Welcome back to CardinADs.org. Today we're going to be continuing our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. In this video, we're going to be answering one of the questions at the center of philosophy, which is, what is logic? Now, logic is one of the most basic areas of philosophy. It's what all the rest of philosophy is built upon. Logic is the codification of language into a deductive system. Basically, we're taking kind of our flowy, flowery, non-specific English language and codifying it, quantifying it in something that looks like math. Logic is the bridge between English and math. Logic has two main parts: semantics, the meanings of symbols and logics, and syntax, the rules that those symbols follow. The purpose of semantics is to codify words and concepts in a language and put them into those shapes and symbols that make up the logical language. The purpose of the syntax and the rules and the grammar is to show which arguments are valid and which are not. Valid, of course, meaning the truth of the premise implies the truth of the conclusion. Now, there's a number of different kinds of logic. The most basic kind is known as first-order classical logic, also just first-order logic, classical logic, or elementary logic. It's what you'll start studying whenever you study logic. After first-order logic, you can kind of move up to what's known as second-order logic, or higher logics. Contrasting with first-order logic, you have non-classical logic, generally people that deny some element of first-order classical logic. And somewhere in between first-order logic and non-classical logic, you have modal logics. In this video, very quickly, we're going to go through each of these categories and give you some resources for a couple of them if you're interested in learning more. So, first-order logic can be generally divided into two parts. You have categorical logic and propositional logic. Categorical logic looks like this. It comes all the way back from the ancient Greeks. All men are mortal. Socrates is a man. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. You draw pictures with Venn diagrams and do things like that. It talks about the uses of terms in a language. That's what it uses. It is the application of predicates to objects. If you want more on categorical logic, I have a whole series. It's about a third of the 100 Days of Logic. Propositional logic, on the other hand, runs arguments like this. If it is raining, then it is cloudy. It is raining, therefore it is cloudy. Its arguments are kind of in this form. They build off of truth tables, and it uses full sentences of a language. It connects those sentences with operators like and, or, and implies. Propositional calculus is basically another name for first-order logic. It's the combination of categorical and propositional logic, also known as classical or first-order logic. All of these concepts are covered in a series I have known as the 100 Days of Logic. If you're interested in learning about any of these, check out that series. Now, modal logics, there's a number of different modal logics. We'll cover 4 here. You have alethic modal logic, which is the logic of possibility and necessity. This is the most common logic that people think of when they think of modal logic. But you also have other logics that fall into the same pattern, such as deontic logic, which is the logic of ethics and obligation. You have temporal logic, the logic of time, the past, and the future. And epistemic or doxastic or justification logic, which is the logic of knowledge, belief, and justification. If you're more interested in any of these logics, we have another series called the 3 Months of Modal Logics that cover all of these with a month for each of them. Now, second order logic is logic we don't have a series on yet, but while first-order logic quantified over objects or individuals, such as all baseballs are round. Second-order logic quantifies over properties or sets of objects. So, for all sets of objects, or for all properties. For example, all sets with more than 3 members are sets that have more than 2 members. Second-order logic and higher-order logics are the building blocks of set theory. And hopefully, we'll get a series on them soon. We've already started touching a little bit on set theory, but we haven't gotten to it properly. Non-classical logics, on the other hand, are going to be logics which deny some element of classical logic, such as perhaps the law of the excluded middle. This leads to new types of logic known as non-classical logic, which will have different conclusions from our original logic. Some examples may include many-valued logic, intuitionistic logic, and paraconsistent logic. Once again, it's another topic that I hope to have a series on. If you have opinions on what my next big logic series should be on non-classical logic or second-order logics, please offer them in the comments below. Check out my series on the 100 days of logic for more on first-order logic, or the 3 months of modal logics for more on modal logic. Stay tuned for more logic series on second-order logic and non-classical logic coming soon. Watch this video and more here at carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.